Do we know what our name is? Hmm?
Whoa. Synthetic drugs can make you think you've seen the devil. What are synthetic drugs, you ask? They're drugs that are manufactured overseas under filthy conditions and marketed to teens with names that are meant to make them seem cool. They're sold on the street and in gas stations and convenience stores. No ID required. But most kids have no clue what they're really buying.
When my son was a junior in high school, he was 16 years old. He met someone who was very experienced with synthetic drugs, and this person pressured him to take synthetic drugs. My son was not a drug user, he was not a drug addict, but he was like a lot of kids, probably most kids and most young adults. He didn't think anything could happen to him. So when he did take this drug, he became very, very sick.
The individual who gave the drug to Landon, he let him lay there for at least over an hour and a half or more before he called anybody. He called 911 and hung up. Then he called 911 back again about 20, 30 minutes later, finally saying that he needed somebody out there. So actually it was probably 2.5 to 3 hours that he was gasping for air.
So by the time that the ambulance got there, he had already lost a lot of oxygen to his brain. He was very, very sick. His brain swelled, and that caused his brain to die. So after 9 days, he was declared brain dead. So he lost his life over a one-time use of a synthetic drug that he really didn't know anything about. And I feel like we failed as parents because we didn't keep our child safe. And, you know, and I felt like at the time we did everything, but obviously it wasn't enough. I think the thing that surprises me about young people doing synthetic drugs is they have no idea what's in the drug, and they don't know how it's going to affect them. The person that was with our son said synthetic drugs were his forte. He was an expert in synthetics. He had done them hundreds of times, and he's alive today. My son did the drug one time and lost his life. So you don't know what's in the drug. You don't know how it's going to affect your body. You might think you're taking something that you've taken before and you were fine, and it might be something totally different because the manufacturers in China are always changing the formulation of these drugs, so you have no idea what you're ingesting or what it might do to you.
Now that other people can look at it and go, I don't want that to be me, because it causes so much heartache for everybody. And Atlanta would not have wanted that, because it would really be, he did not want to hurt all of us. I know. And the thing is, he's in a better place, but we're going to be suffering.
Okay. You'll regret that in about a half an hour.
Some synthetics are designed to be smoked like marijuana. Vaping is another way that's becoming popular. But synthetics like spice aren't marijuana at all. They're a mix of dangerous chemicals like acetone added to another substance to make it easier to use. Up to 100 times more potent than pot.
That's when I'm tripping.
You tripping?
No.
You sure?
Maybe.
Maybe.
I don't know. What is it? I don't get it. I don't know. But I don't know. You most.
What I knew at the time was synthetic drugs was a legal way to get high. and I was not going to do marijuana because it was illegal. So I was going to do the legal form and try to get the same result. But I learned that that's not a good thing. I never smoked or did drugs in high school and college, and I stayed away from it, but this was a legal marijuana for us. Me and a few buddies, we went, he bought it, and we went to a friend of ours' apartment, and my buddy lit a water bong of his, and then he smoked the spice, and I was next in line, and he walked out of the kitchen to the living room, and I lit mine and took a hit. And when I did, by the time I got from the kitchen to the living room, what was maybe 10 steps, my buddy was seizing. I ran over to him, rolled him over, started holding his tongue where he wouldn't bite it off and swallow it and start choking. And then a thought rolls through my mind is, I'm next. That was a scary moment. I mean, that's a scary moment to know you're about to start seizing and you can't do anything. When I started seizing, the only thing that I saw, and people may think this is funny, but what I saw was the devil. And just as clear as you're sitting here, he was there. And when I saw the devil, I was on the ground. He was sitting Indian style next across. He had long fingers, glowing eyes, and horns. And he was trying to reach out and grab me and pull me to him. And when that was happening, I was screaming no, and I was trying to get away. I was pushing, trying to get as far away as I could. And later I found out that in real life, I was actually screaming no and resisting the people trying to help me. Because in my mind, and what was going on with me, is I was fighting the devil. I was running and pushing and trying to get away, but as far as I could, and when I tried, I wasn't going anywhere. So I just kept fighting and saying no, no, no. The next thing I remember, I woke up in the hospital. My aunt was wiping blood out of my ears and nose, mouth, eyes. I was bleeding everywhere. And I woke up to my parents walking in to the hospital room, and I mean, that was a chilling factor. I knew the police officer that was standing there. We coached Little League together, and you know, it was just a moment of relief that I'm alive, but it's like, what did I just do? My buddy bought it from a convenience store, and that's just blew my mind that something from a convenience store could kill you. I took one hit, one puff from it, and I started immediately seizing. That's scary. And at that time, I mean, you're thinking this is legal, this is fine, you know, this can't hurt me. It's a legal weed. Weed's never killed anybody, you've always heard. But this almost did. That, you know, you may die from this, from a little bit of fun for 5 minutes, and you can die. Is it worth losing your life and having to force your family to bury you, and them go on without? I mean, families should never be put through that. And I put my family through that, and I regret that I ever did. That my family didn't deserve that.
The unpredictability of synthetic drugs is not only secondary to what the short-term effects may be of there may be no adverse events, but more than likely there will be some short-term adverse events of psychosis or hallucinations, high blood pressure, fast heart rate, seizures even. But the very scary thing is that we truly as a medical community cannot predict what the long-term events are going to be. We know that a lot of times when you take these drugs initially, there's kidney failure secondary to muscles breaking down, and the kidneys can't handle that. And there's no promise that that kidney failure is going to be a short-term deal. There are a lot of kids that are on dialysis secondary to having that kidney damaged during the initial use of the drug. Along with that, tends to be some psychiatric consequences. So there are lots of case studies, which means there are individuals out there that report after using these medications that their cognitive performance is not as good. That means that they don't remember things as well. They are not as good as math as they used to be. If they were athletes, they're not able to perform as well. And so it makes it difficult for them to function in their daily lives. Oftentimes, it's such a great difference that a lot of people may commit suicide because they don't recognize themselves anymore. They've changed completely and they're not able to function as members of society.
Every year, poison control centers field thousands of calls from young people who've overdosed on synthetics. Bath salts are a form of synthetic drug designed to mimic the effects of drugs like cocaine and meth. They often produce delusions, hallucinations, and extreme violence. In Florida, a man high on bath salts tore the radar unit out of a police vehicle with his teeth. A woman was attacked by her daughter who tried to cut off her head with a machete. A doctor in Louisiana watched his son cut his throat. He survived, only to shoot himself later when he had visions of soldiers swarming his house.
Brandon was the best son that any parent could ever ask for.
He's very smart. We don't know where he got the brains.
Graduation night, he did the commencement speech for the trade school graduation. And then graduation night at high school, he got an award from the Board of Education. And when we got home, he said, "Dad, this was the happiest day of my life." And he would laugh and say, you know, once he got that scholarship, he would always tell me, laugh about it. He said, "Dad, I told you I was going to be a doctor." Even though we run a family construction company, he knew from day one he never was going to get into that. He would say, "I'm going to be a doctor." He had everything lined up in his life.
He was polite, well-mannered, never really talked back to me. And I noticed changes with him. He got more irritable than usual, like angry, talking back to me and being short with me. But we kind of chalked that up to being a teenager too. He was complaining about his heart racing, and we took him to Birmingham and got his heart checked out, and everything checked out okay. But the biggest change I saw in him was just being real irritable. He
had no idea that the spice was hurting him because he asked to go to the doctor. He would say
having like panic attacks,
nightmares. He would just sweat,
yeah,
just like you wet him with a hose. I mean, he was just so wet in the morning, and he asked to go to the doctor. In fact, he went to a doctor here in town the night before. I don't know if he didn't think they could tell, or he didn't. He just thought it was safe. The only thing I can figure, he thought it was safe and didn't hurt him because, you know, especially buying it over the counter. But what's bad?
Within months, it seems like he just went from Brandon to this disrespectful, don't have time for you kids. Out of the blue, he was wanting to go to Florida. He was talking about leaving on Monday to go to Florida and come back Tuesday to make an appointment. It just didn't make any sense. And we said no, you know, and this went back and forth, and that's when he got rude with you. I mean, started hollering back at you and
just short talking with me, something I never seen out of him. So it upset me so bad that I finally just, to keep from blowing up, I told him I was going to go for a ride. I said, "This is ridiculous, Brandon. You know you can't do that." And he kept on and on and on, and he was actually to the point of crying. I mean, he was in tears. I mean, it was almost like he had to go.
And Steve said he saw a few of Brandon's friends walking up the road. He said they'll be knocking on the door in a minute. So he went on outside, and sure enough, they're knocking on the door. So I hollered for Brandon to come to the door because I knew it was his friends. And he didn't answer. So I'm calling Brandon until I get up to his room. And that's when I found Brandon.
She come outside screaming and dropped to the patio. And I run inside and run upstairs, and when I opened his bedroom door, I knew he was dead. He had just undoubtedly just had shot himself, and I laid on the floor with him. Lori dropped to the floor and was in the other bedroom and was screaming and crying, and I laid on the floor begging God to let him breathe. I laid with him until they carried me downstairs. And it was just the most, I mean, it'll never, the vision of that will never leave my mind. When Brandon actually died, he had left that morning and he came back, and I found out later on through the kids and through the text messages and stuff that he had smoked it that day, the synthetics that day. They were getting on to him. He says, I know I'm gonna stop. He says, it's making me crazy. He knew it was doing something to him, but I believe now that I don't think he could quit it. I think that it just had a hold of him, because I know he wouldn't put us in a situation, he wouldn't do anything to put us where we are now. For him to take his life the way Brandon did at our home, where he knew we'd find him, he just wouldn't have done that. He wouldn't have done it to us or his grandparents. He loved his grandparents, he loved his cousins, he loved his whole family. He wouldn't have, there's no way he would have wanted us to find him like the way we found him. This synthetics had such a strong hold on him that wasn't Brandon that morning. That wasn't our son. Since he died, we've been devastated. Our life is just, we live day to day. There's days that I don't even want to get out of bed. It affects our whole family to the point to, it's affect our marriage, it's just devastating to us. And the death of a child is just, we'll never have a grandchild. We'll go, that's probably the worst thing. We know, we always look forward to that now because of a $20 pack of synthetics. We'll never have a grandchild.
Brandon had everything going for him, had everything lined up for him. He just graduated, had a four-year full scholarship. He had it all, I mean, he wasn't depressed. It was this stuff that did this to him.
Sorry. I shouldn't have done this shit.
Most synthetic drug users hallucinate right away. Many see devils and demons. So-called synthetic club drugs like ecstasy and ketamine produce euphoric highs, but the ride back down can be devastating. Confusion, depression, anxiety, and like all synthetic drugs, death.
You know?
Calm down, dude.
Calm down, bro. Relax. Shh. You're fine. No one's gonna do anything to you. You're cool, man. Relax. You're among friends. It's all good, man.
Friends. Choose them wisely, because that's where it usually starts. Someone you know offers you a line, a pill, or a hint. Be real. No friend would offer you something that could kill you. It's your life. Live it wide awake. Choose friends that make your life better, not worse. Stay clean, and stay as far away from those demons as you can. In Alabama, the best prescription is zero addiction.